na Héireann, agus Sabina Higgins, a Grina Uisle, a Cordia Clare, agus go speisialta na páistí atá an seoinniu, fáilte roimh go léir. Go dtí stór síalta na Héireann ar an láspa síalta seo. Táid brodúil ar gach duine díobh teacht inniu. You are all so welcome here today. For 21 years, Irish Seed Savers have been building up a collection of heirloom varieties, of open pollinating varieties of seeds here in County Clare. They've been building up a seed bank of 800 now different varieties of fruit and vegetable, securing the food security of our small island for generations to come. Today, the building that we're standing in is actually an ashling, Bringloid of Anita Hayes. It was her dream many decades ago. I like to say at the height of the Gulf War, Anita Hayes planted an apple tree, a great sign of hope and a dream that has been realised today. And we are really honoured to bear witness to this very, very special day. We better be careful about dreamers, because dreams come true, and today is surely a dream. And last weekend we had another dream. We said we were looking for a powerful orator, a great communicator and an advocate for seed savers on the East Coast, preferably with a big garden. And next thing, Uachtarán na Héireann arrives. No pressure. But it is really, really wonderful. Today it's about the seeds, it's about the seed savers, and it's also actually about our new beloved Uachtarán na Héireann, Michael D. Higgins. Because I don't think it's an accident of history at all, but I think it is a fate that allows you, Mr. President, to be our president at the time that the first gene bank is actually being established in our country. Just 5 generations ago, as we all know, 1 million people starved on this fertile land of ours, and 1 million people emigrated, a demographic that has not been changed until recent years, in fact, and which unfortunately is hemorrhaging again. But we actually save here now seeds that will ensure that a famine cannot happen again. And we know that in our president we have a true campaigner all his life, globally. He is the first politician I ever heard speaking about food politics, about food sovereignty, the right of people to self-determine their futures, and of resilience. And you do not meet an ordinary staff or a workforce here today. As a voluntary member of the board and an honoured member of the board here over many years, I have met people who have actually, they do this work as a service to nature and to beauty. And beauty has been the greatest casualty of our time. The greatest casualty. So it is my deepest honour, with such wonderful people here, and a lot of the local wonderful children particularly, because this is your future, that we are honouring today, to save and continue to save these seeds. What a hopeful thing to do, to open a bank in 2012. A proper bank, a seed bank. And we are so honoured to have a poet as our president and a dreamer. Please give your warmest welcome to Uachtarán na Héireann, Mr. Michael D. Higgins.
An gédal sias gur míle máchas asach an firkin fórseo dar túrum. I'm very pleased to be here. To is míle ma bhuicas a gháil near ma han héine agus a sama then céile agus íadach a lam. I want to say thanks to the warm and generous welcome that I've received here in Scariff, and particularly in Seed Savers, which I visited some years ago, and to Geraldine Tobin, who invited me to visit here. While it isn't my first visit, I'm always very happy to see the progress and changes that are being made as you extend your conservation activities. I think that these positive changes I think that this 21st birthday is a very important one. 21 years you have achieved putting together Ireland's first seed bank, and indeed, as you have just said, 800 varieties of heritage vegetable seeds, and that this is only part of the story, and your association preserves and stores 48 heritage grain varieties, a heritage potato collection of over 50 varieties, 140 different native apple varieties in your orchards, and holds the native apple tree collection on site, and your collection of more than 33 varieties of self-rooters that are among the largest collection in the world. Now, I must say that when I came here first, it was out of curiosity, I think, for a kind of lay interest in the enormous number of the varieties of apple trees that were being saved effectively in memory, in short memory. As I have just been pointed out to me, these are in fact not native species, but ones that had been introduced perhaps in the 19th century and so on. I also look forward to reading, when I go back to the Oris, about the long history, as it were, of the saving of seeds and their importance. It was the weariness of my long journey in a way, and I couldn't hear it precisely, but I said, Anna, I think, was just saying it to me. Is that your first name? Anita was saying to me about the importance of the work that was done originally on Russian collections and the trawls through those to find Irish varieties and the saving of these. And it really illustrated for me. I intend to read a great deal more about this because I'm very interested in it, and particularly about the tragedy of the sending of the scientists to a labour camp, and also the death of science, those scientists who were responsible during the siege of Stalingrad. I think that what is very interesting to all of us, you mentioned indeed generously my own interest in food, in the politics of food. At a global level, we're in a very interesting situation in which I think the choices are going to be very stark. They're fine if they're stark because people can debate them, but if they're subtle and imperceptible, they're really dangerous. For example, as the population of the world is projected to rise from 7 billion to 9 billion, what one immediately does then is to say, well, this is going to create a food crisis in the world. So therefore one must produce using any particular, what is an imposed method of production. In my other life, when I was a spokesperson on foreign affairs and when I was interested in the politics of food, I was always conscious of contradictions. Contradictions, for example, that were so blatant in places like East Africa, where 80% of the production was carried out by women with hoes in fields who didn't own the land upon which they worked. And yet I read sometimes some of the proposals that are being made to in fact address food production are ones that would not necessarily assist such women at all. For example, the suggestion that you simply give titles to the land which can be translated into a collateral for loans from banks that in turn become the basis of investment and so on. And already it is happening in Mexico. The famous De Soto model, which was favoured by many agricultural economists and so forth, as the fastest means of turning peasant farmers into small owners and so forth, has been a disaster in removing the land from the peasants of Mexico. The same model is being suggested very much for Africa, but much more important, as your people are starving in Africa and you're getting an offer of emergency food aid that is genetically modified. There are some leaders in Africa who actually is saying that they don't want to this seed with this particular way. What happens in many cases, the rains in Africa, where you would have two great seasons of the big rains and the little rains. And when the planting season comes, people, as they often did in Ireland, before they became dependent on the potato, would leave a kind of a butt in the bag of seed, so this would in turn be seed. But what if this seed is infertile? And therefore then suddenly, you are suddenly dependent on those who are the single source of a single variety of food or corn. In many ways, this is one of the great sadnesses of my own life in many ways, that the space is often very little. It is only in places like this, as I go around the country, that you have an opportunity of discussing the significance of the reduction of biodiversity on our planet. We have, in many cases, this is why I'm come positively to celebrate 21 years of Seed Savers. That is the positive story. And all that they say, as I said, the 800 varieties of heritage vegetable seeds, the 48 grain varieties, the 140 different apple varieties, and so on. But also, of course, we've lost a great deal. But it is important that since it started in 1991, Irish Seed Savers Association now employs 16 people. And I remember myself when we came down here, Sabine and I, to get apple trees in the old days, I might come once or twice, that we always joined afterwards. So you have, as a non-governmental organisation, it has maybe among the largest number of paying supporters, just under 2,000. But what goes on in this simple place, that is not simple at all, is to think that in 2010, 2 years ago, it distributed 30,000 packets of organic heritage seeds. And that's a very, 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 very great achievement. So what is happening is that you could be very depressed about the global challenges that I have described, about global hunger. I myself believe that there's an intellectual challenge there that is very great. That it is only when into development strategies are planted recognition of indigenous wisdom. There's great knowledge, for example, contained in many of the African countries about how one piece of growth is balanced against another, so forth. That is often wiped out. It is only in recent decades that the World Bank recognised agriculture at all as a source of hope for the continent of Africa. But everywhere, and it is interesting that on our planet, this vulnerable planet that we share together, there are species at risk. And indeed, among humans, it is in fact the indigenous peoples and their way of life who are most threatened. Threatened by desertification in forms of Africa, threatened in the Amazon by the destruction of logging and so forth. So really what one is choosing to do, and what organisations like Seed Savers are doing, is choosing to, at least in this island, which was a great and achievable project, to arrest the development of homogenisation of life to the point at which we become vulnerable. So therefore 30,000 packets of organic heritage seeds in 2010 is a very significant gesture. I think that the complexity of the challenges facing the 16 staff, they are significant, from ensuring that they have to be fully aware of the crops they're dealing with, to understanding the significance of the varieties involved. This is careful work, and work that demands great diligent attention. Pest and disease control, the fertility or otherwise of species and the husbandry methods, the pollination requirements, and how then to collect seed. So in times when commentators speak of the need for so many often offer us just words in relation to the loss of biodiversity. It's very good. It's good now to be able to say something very positive, that the Department of Agriculture, Fisheries and Food has recognised the association's seed banks as a depository for Ireland's plant genetic resources, and will as a consequence become a central component of our response to that loss. So it's heartening to know that in addition to all this important work that is taking place here, that growers are being educated about its importance and that skills and expertise are being passed on. It shows as well that there's nothing as positive, I think, as helpful in education as a demonstration facility for visitors. So I can understand how in better weather this would be, in fact, a great pedagogic tool for schools. I think that we need that kind of expertise and skill and understanding. And one of the things that is most interesting, I think, about the consciousness that is emerging now, not just in Ireland, but perhaps in other parts of the world as well, is that people are going back and seeing the earth as a place that is very important, as the home of so many living species. the problem that we all came